All right, Nick, let's talk about the Atlanta Falcons. This is a team coming into this offseason, a lot of changes on the offensive side of things. We're looking at the quarterback position, a lot of question marks. What are they going to do there? Offensive coordinator, new guy in town. I think this Raheem Morris led team, very, very interesting. I think that we are liking the direction that they are going in thus far. But we've got an update, potential, Vegas odds update as far as who the Falcons might be leaning towards quarterback wise and what it would mean for this team. Let's get in the article and we'll talk more about it on the other side. This is from over on NBC Sports. It says the clock is ticking on the Vikings to re-sign quarterback Kirk Cousins before he becomes a free agent, and the window is open for folks to bet on his next team. Friday's PFT Live included a segment with the drafting odds for Cousins' team in 2024. The Vikings remain the favorite at minus 200, but the non-Minnesota favorite is Atlanta at plus 300. Very good odds. Next is a return to Washington at plus 500 and the Raiders at plus 800. The Falcons are definitely on the radar screen because it must be intriguing for Cousins to play for the Falcons. The division is much weaker than NFC North. Also, new offensive coordinator Zach Robinson traces to Sean McVay, the same as Vikings coach Kevin O'Connell, and new coach Raheem Morris is very respected in league circles. The offense also has players like Bijan Robinson, Kyle Pitts, and Drake London. So I think this is a very interesting angle as far as why Kirk Cousins would go to the Atlanta Falcons. Nick, I know you have some more thoughts on this. I'm curious what they are. But Falcons fans, let us know in the comment section below. What are you thinking is going to happen with the quarterback situation in Atlanta? There's a lot of options on the table, a lot of what ifs, a lot of could happens. Let us know what you think is going to go on in the quarterback room for the Atlanta Falcons in the comment section below. But Nick, what are your thoughts on this latest news on Vegas odds for Kirk Cousins?
So I think it's important to understand that, especially in this world of bigger gambling, and now that Vegas is deeply intertwined with the National Football League, that when we see odds in something like this is not some like random offshoot bookie or sports book. This is billions and billions of dollars going into these sports books to set these odds and odds like these. So this is essentially the smart money saying that the Atlanta Falcons, in my opinion, are the favorite to get Kirk Cousins. Anytime a player is still coming off of the team he was on, the team he was leaving is still always going to be the favorite for a re-sign. That's the case 99 times out of 100. For example, if you back up a number of years ago when Brady was rumored to be leaving the New England Patriots, the Patriots were still the odds-on favorite to re-sign Brady, even though he obviously, a lot of people who could look at that say he's probably going to leave. So I ignore the fact that the Vikings are the favorite here. I look to the next team, and that would be the Atlanta Falcons. And look, if the smart money is pointing to Atlanta acquiring Kirk Cousins, I think at this point you almost have to say it's probably going to happen. Now, look, I don't think the Falcons necessarily should do that. I'm a big believer in getting your young franchise quarterback in the first round. I love a trade up into the top three, maybe with that same Patriots team to get a quarterback like Jane Daniels. I've been very vocal about that. But Kirk Cousins can fix a lot of the Falcons' short-term issues. The Atlanta Falcons this past season lost 7 games in which they had a lead. Kirk Cousins in 2022, for example, his last healthy season, he won 11 one-score games. So you talk about a guy who can slide in perfectly and fix a lot of the Falcons' issues and basically put the Falcons back in the playoffs. Kirk Cousins is that guy. So I understand that line of thinking from Raheem Morris's perspective, from the Atlanta Falcons' perspective. If they add Kirk Cousins, I think they're the best team in that division, the NFC South. I think they win that division and they maybe win a playoff game or two. Who knows? The only concern I have is the long-term trajectory of the Atlanta Falcons. And maybe they're just going to add Kirk Cousins for 2 years and readdress this problem in 2026 or 2025 in terms of the long-term answer at quarterback. I'm not a huge fan of that, but I could see that strategy. It would make some sort of sense in my mind, especially considering how the Atlanta Falcons have had 3 straight disappointing seasons and really a lot of disappointing seasons since their last Super Bowl run a number of years ago. So long story short here, I think the Falcons are about or really closing in on acquiring Kirk Cousins, who I know his contract situation still says he's under contract technically with the Vikings, but it's all void year stuff. So he will be a free agent. So I think what this report is saying here is that Kirk Cousins is going to be, or is a high likelihood of being an Atlanta Falcon. And look, if he's the Falcons quarterback, not the greatest long-term answer. I get it, but you're the best team in the division. And I mean, you got to take that at some point. So I understand what the Falcons are thinking here, and I understand what Vegas is thinking here. And I think at this point, we all have to come around to the fact Kirk Cousins is going to be a Atlanta Falcon.
Yeah, Nick. And one thing I want to say to Falcons fans, as far as to put you a little bit at ease, as far as if that was the decision, look at the Falcons' history the last few years at bringing in free agents. They've done absolutely fantastic. Like Caden Ellis, he came in and
Yeah,
became a
good
serviceable
point.
starter at linebacker, even good starter at linebacker. Calais Campbell came in as a culture guy and very, very high level player for that Falcons defensive line. Another Saints guy, Onyemata on the defensive line came in, graded as a top 9 defensive interior lineman per PFF in the league last season. Jesse Bates comes in at safety, number 1 rated PFF safety in the league. The list goes on and on. This is a Falcons team who's been pretty solid at picking out free agents the last few years and bringing them into this organization, getting quality starters out. They know what they need. They know who fits this scheme, this roster. So I think if they were to bring in a guy like Kirk Cousins, it would have to make sense to them on paper, and they wouldn't be looking into him if it didn't make sense. So I think they see something. I think, like they said, you talked about, this could be a great fit potentially. There are better fits, but are they reasonable? Can the Falcons trade up that high? It would be great if they could, but I think this is a viable option if they were to bring him in, and it could be something they do and really ends up working out well for them.
And it's important to understand, right? Listen, I'm a big believer in trading up in the draft and getting your quarterback, getting your guy. But if you look at the winningest teams in the NFL the past few years, a lot of them before they got their franchise quarterback, not all, but a lot of them were winning a lot already. The Chiefs were winning games, going to the playoffs with Alex Smith before they got Mahomes. The Buffalo Bills were a solid team before they went out and got Josh Allen. The Baltimore Ravens, for example, they had won a Super Bowl with Flacco, right? They had made some deep playoff runs with Joe Flacco. They were a solid team when they traded up and got Lamar Jackson. Now, it's not always the case. The Bengals tanked for Burrow, the Dolphins tanked for Tua. But the reality is there is at least a history, a precedent of success of bringing in a veteran quarterback and then waiting for the right opportunity to draft your long-term answer. And based on these Vegas odds and based on the reporting out of Atlanta, that's exactly what the Falcons are going to do. And look, in the short term, if it means you make some playoff games, win some playoff games, win a few division titles, you take it and you just trust Terry Fontenot to find the guy over the next couple of years, which honestly, Fontenot's a smart guy, like you alluded to, with his success in free agency. And, look, there's a recipe for success there. There's a clear formula there. Now we'll be on the Falcons to execute on that.